I just wanted to I guess relay a little bit about the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Our role here in the community is doing this kind of thing, just being a place for peace, a place where we can help the community gather its energy over issues of peace, over justice, and over sustainability, both environmental as well as psychological. And so our purpose in being here is, again, just to help gather and help the community express itself and how it would define achieving those goals of peace, justice, and sustainability. So I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Anita Doyle. And just so you know, we won't be having these chairs like this the whole evening. We'll be rotating them and moving them about a little later.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. How many of you were at the meeting last Wednesday night? Oh, cool. A whole bunch of new people. All right. Okay. Well, what we're going to be exploring this evening are what are your ideas for getting stuff going in the community? We've already got people working on a variety of things over here, and we'll have an opportunity to hear about all of those, but I don't want anybody here to feel as though if your idea isn't up there, it's not going to get heard. That's what we're here for, is to hear your ideas tonight, okay? I'd like to kind of just gather us together for a moment of silence, if that's okay with everybody. Just gather our energy together and hold in our awareness the folks that lost their lives recently, and also everybody in the world who is now involved in this process with us. Okay. George, could we begin with you? Do you want to talk about the forum that's getting going? Sure. What's going on there?
In just the last few days, a few of us on campus, and then also representatives of the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center and ASUM have decided to create a campus community forum. We've been trying to find a good night for that. It looks like we settled on Tuesday. Not this coming week, because there are events already scheduled on Monday and Wednesday nights that are being publicized on various topics, one of them sponsored by the Mansfield Center. But beginning that following Tuesday, October 2nd, from 7 to 9 in the Science Complex, room 110, all this will be publicized. We want to do a series of discussions of two-part format with panelists talking for the first hour and then open discussion for the second hour. We're thinking in terms of focused topics for each week related to the tragedy and the crisis and what's to come, such as Middle East history and cultures, just war theories, military strategy, media coverage in wartime, and so forth. And we're certainly open to suggestions for speakers. The easiest thing for us to do on campus, of course, is to reach out in our immediate communities and find faculty. And we don't want it to be restricted to faculty who are on these panels. So if you have ideas, or if you yourself want to come forward as to talk on a topic, please let me know. I guess I should give you my email address. My name is George Cheney, last name C-H-E-N-E-Y, and my email address is Cheney, that's G-C-H-E-N-E-Y, at selway.umt.edu. So we welcome your suggestions, and we're trying to widen the network of participation, and we really intend these sessions to bridge the campus and the community, be an opportunity to share ideas, disseminate information, but also very seriously for discussion and debate. Thank you.
Does everybody know about that? Hey, Joel, can you say a little bit more about it?
I wish I could tell you a little bit more about it. There's a Middle Eastern Film Festival. One of the films in that festival is called The Inner Circle. It begins at the New Crystal Theater tomorrow at 7. It will play through the week at 7 p.m. Michelle Valentine, who is in the French Geography Department at a university, is organizing the festival. So by calling a university switchboard, asking for Michelle Valentine's office number, you can contact him directly for information on that.
And is it the following day at the UM Theater, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, and Sunday as well.
What time of day is the UM?
That I wish I knew. I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
There is an ad in the Independent,
Yeah.
Okay.
so you can look in the New Independent and you'll find it there.
Afternoon, basically 4 or 5 o'clock, I think. And Michelle's email, if you want it, is objetta, OBJETA, @USWest.net.
US West is one, no dot.
Yeah.
George, are you wanting any more, I mean, is the committee pretty much set for your work? Do you need any other?
Well, if people have suggestions on two levels, one is specific topics relating to the crisis that you'd like to see covered. I mentioned a number of those. We have some others in mind, too. And if you or somebody else you know would like to be a member of a panel on a particular topic, then we really welcome suggestions. So both topics and people.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you know where those forums would be held.
The Science Complex, room 110, 7 to 9, on Tuesdays beginning October 2nd.
Did you say 109?
110.
110.
What time of day or evening?
7 to 9.
Something like that.
Okay, great. Is Debbie here by any chance with the peer, what's it called? No, okay. There's some energy gathering around the idea of having a potluck for Arab students on campus. So if there's anybody that's interested in being involved with that, we can give you the email address of the person who's working that. And so just talk to me afterwards and we'll get that for you, okay? And speaking of emails, we're right now circulating a list. If you want to be regularly updated about the activities that are going on around this crisis now, you'll receive those from us if you give us your email address. If you're not on the net, leave us a phone number and we'll give you a call, and also your snail mail address, and we'll put something in the mail to you, okay? Thanks. Okay, one thing that's really exciting to me that's been happening this week, the person who's been doing it isn't here to talk about it, but last week at our gathering, we had a high school student with us from Hellgate. Is there anybody from Hellgate here tonight?
Mother of one.
Okay. This young woman told us that 100 young men had been absent from school that day in order to enlist in the military. This was the day after the tragedy. And that moved a couple of the men in the audience to think about ways to be involved with engaging in dialogue with the young people in town. And one of these people, Bob Giordano, took it upon himself to just show up at Hellgate in different spots where the kids were hanging out at lunchtime and just talk to people. Just listen to what it was that they had to say. And came back to report that, number one, it was tremendously heartening that there was actually some diversity of feeling. There wasn't just a kind of monolithic sense of what needed to happen, and that there was actually a predominance of feeling that violence was really the wrong way to go right now. And the other thing that I found really interesting in what he reported was that even the students who at first said, well, we got to nuke them, they always followed that statement with a laugh. And then he said it was like that just fell away. And then they were open to really talking at a whole nother level. It was almost as though that, you know, first revengeful kind of response needed to happen, but as soon as it was lifted, they were right there ready to engage with him and talking about alternatives. So it was a profoundly hopeful thing that he reported to us, and seemed to be a very welcome thing from the student side to have somebody willing to talk to them about that. Dean?
One of the things we discussed actually is trying to set up listening posts. You know, if we can organize some people just to set up a place just to listen, just to hear what people have to say, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and note it if they want to share it with others, and say thank you. Not to engage people in dialogue, but to give them an outlet to express themselves. And so if people are interested in a listening post and volunteering for something like that, what we'll be doing later is, as we start collecting these different ideas, we're going to try to identify specific, if you want to be notified about specific things rather than in general, and hopefully we'll do some breakouts here where we'll get together with those who are interested in different topics and just talk about them, see where they can lead.
Oh, and just as a follow-up on the listening post idea, I was telling Dean at Missoula Community Access Television yesterday, I did a listening post for an hour and a half. I simply sat and answered phones, and we had about 30 calls in that 90 minutes, and made very little commentary on them in a C-SPAN sort of fashion. It's a little draining to sit there and be on television for 90 minutes, but if anyone here is interested in taking that on, I can facilitate the technical end of it. And we can do it again tomorrow night or Sunday night. You could just talk to me about it later.
Talk about the kinds of calls that came in. What was your feeling about
I think it's only fair. There were a variety of calls that came in. I think the second call that came in, the caller said something along the lines really of the activity that you were all trying to do tonight, and that generated a lot of angry calls. Someone said something like the United States needs to look at its foreign policy, or needs to try to decode why there is such an aberrant action out there, and they got jumped on. That maybe generated 10 calls in very quick succession, and a lot of them misunderstood the intention of that caller. The caller said, maybe this is a time for introspection, to try to see what is going on and why it was going on. That really was the extent of it, and that became enlarged to sympathy for the attackers or sympathy for that point of view. And from there, it is kind of like a game of telephone, that type of communication, because callers call upon callers who call upon callers, so the 10th caller interpreting the second caller. But it was just kind of an indication of that sort of spin. But there really was a variety of responses to the calls, from very, very hawkish calls to calls for understanding, calls for restraint in general. That particular program will replay on MCAT. It's channel 7 in the Valley and channel 13 in the Rattlesnake. If you're in Miller Creek, it's channel 8. You can watch the tapes down there. If you don't get cable and you want to see it, just call us and we'll arrange a time. It'll play tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. until 10.
Thanks, Joel.
Oh, you're welcome.
That brings up the question, I think, and George, maybe maybe you've already thought about a speaker who can address this, but the problem of, you know, how to work with this kind of angry energy that will almost certainly be coming the way of anybody who is seriously engaged with looking for alternatives to violence. Is that one of the topics that's come up?
Yeah, some people have said, just having a discussion about emotions, anger, sadness, compassion, the whole range of things would be helpful to a lot of people. But you're right, I mean, it's extremely difficult. And the potential for misunderstanding, like the example you gave, Joel, I think, is there. it will continue to be there even with time. So that could be, if folks think that would be useful in itself, to have a discussion center.
Any thoughts on this? Yeah.
I work with the Caring for Creation Network. I'm the moderator for the list and the group, and I don't know if there are other people in the room who are actually on the list, but we also are creating a statement to address these issues, and we also have a listserv who work with our own group in the Sustainability Network, and I guess part of what we want to do is we're formulating a proactive response to what's going on in planning and creating another sustainability conference like we did last year, probably in late 2002, but it's a proactive step, and I guess we're just starting to plan it now. So if anybody's interested, I can give you the email address for the listserv. Not for the sustainability listserv, but for the Caring for Creation listserv.
When you say that, so I'll put it in the notes. If you could just speak it now, and I'll put it in the notes.
It's the word caring, and then underline or underscore, and then the number 4, and then underscore the word creation at yahoogroups.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, George.
I just had a chance to think a little bit more about your question, Anita, and I'm wondering if people would find it useful to discuss that, or have some kind of session that would go beyond a discussion, that would be more like a training for folks in terms of specific strategies for dealing with the emotions that come up. I mean, people who are trained in nonviolence on the one hand, people who are trained in conflict management, mediation, and so forth, have a lot to say about that. And we might be able to bring together some folks with experience in that. And I think rather than just have a panel discussion on it, have it be more like a training thing, dealing with different scenarios, different kinds of responses to situations like this, whether they're in the media where they pick up steam even faster, like you were saying, Joel, or just on the street or with loved ones. And I think there are a lot of conflicts already in families and among friends over these issues, so I don't know how folks feel about that.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I'd love to have that training.
I think it's a good idea, too.
We heard from at least a couple of people last week who wished they had that in order to deal with their spouses. We chuckled, but you can imagine the pain of that, of sharing a house and bed with someone who really did not feel at all the way that you're feeling, and feeling thus silenced within their own homes. It's really, really important, I think, and something that I think a lot of people would respond to at an early stage in these forums.
By the way, for people who don't know me, my name is Rick Gold. I think if we all said our names, because I don't know a lot of people in this room, it might be helpful.
My name's Mike. To start that off, but I was just going to say that Seeds of Peace, the collective that I work with, that's one of the services we can offer the community. We have folks experienced in nonviolence trainings, and we would be happy to work with people to set something like that up.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Can we get your last name?
Bower Socks.
How do we find you?
It's going to be on the list.
Oh.
It's going to be on the list, and later on you'll get our email and contact information.
That would be great. One of the things I want to let people know, so we're gathering here tonight, Thursday night, and we're just going to open the center every Thursday night and see who shows up. So maybe one of those Thursday nights, you can do training, you on a Tuesday night. If you want to get together and have a follow-on discussion from what was discussed on Tuesday, come here on Thursday. If you're trying to find a place just to meet with other people on a project, the center's open all day long, and this room is empty most of the day. So there's opportunities to use the space efficiently. But we could do perhaps one of the trainings on some other Thursday night that he's talking about, if you wanted to hold that here one Thursday night, Mike.
Okay.
So,
Anybody else?
Well, I just wanted to, I guess my comment is more of a concern than anything practical, but just that I feel like right now, listening to the national discourse, that the whole tone of the debate that we're edging into is being set right now. And I just think, looking at history, there's so much importance in how the discourse is set up, how the terms are defined. And I feel like obviously in this room we're probably all concerned about that and probably have some similar ideas about what it means to want to react nonviolently. And I'm just really, really worried about that, because I feel like I've heard a lot actually on the national media of people saying that they do want to have a nonviolent response or a less violent response. But I feel like the shock of this whole event is going to wear off, and that we could easily just kind of fall back into old terms. And so I guess I just kind of wanted to express that anxiety and my desire personally to try and find that way to talk about this with my friends and family who don't agree with me. But I think that it's not only important to be able to do that on the personal level, but somehow to be able to affect our community-wide discourse about it, and in that way hopefully affect the national discourse on it, because there's a way in which maybe ultimately it's most important to be able to communicate with your spouse about it, but I feel like in terms of actually affecting what's going to happen, and not just sort of talking to ourselves, preaching to the choir, but reaching people, say, my parents in Iowa, who are not strongly one way or the other, but being able to make this a moment where we can actually reach out and expand our ranks as a nonviolent, peaceful movement. I think that there's an enormous amount of potential in this moment, and I just feel like it's crucial. The defining of the terms and the discourse is a crucial part of that. So,
Excellent, yeah, thank you so much.
I don't know how to
What
do
is your
this,
name? What is your name?
Amy.
Amy, okay. George, would you mind spending some time addressing that very thing? Because we've also been noting how critical this moment is in terms of doing just what Amy said, that it's sort of more important than anything else, it feels like, to be engaging with this right now. So, come over here.
So it's really, I guess what you're asking also, Anita, this is not about convincing people to change their views, but it's just finding a way to establish a dialogue.
Finding space for that.
Right, so it doesn't become immediately move into positions.
I can tell you about my own experience in the last 9 days, and I'm not the first person to resort to technology as a solution for our problems. But I'm finding now much more than during the Gulf War, actually, which was when I found myself first drawn to email. But I'm finding with this conflict much more, the internet's playing an enormous role. And with every passing day that the U.S. does not take a retaliatory action in some part of the world, I get a little more hope for creative possibilities and for some kind of restraint. And because quite clearly to me, and I think to others, the national media, particularly in the form of the major networks on television, have been of one piece on this issue. I mean, there are a few differences, and I think a few signs of hope yesterday and today in them pulling back. But so quick to label it, as CNN now does on their regular banner, America's New War and so forth, really almost being out in front in terms of setting policy, and much of what's passed for news has been actually beating the war drum. The Fox channel, I think, is the worst. But the others are not far behind. But what I'm finding then on the internet is a space for people to participate in a very different kind of discourse. And just the messages that have been, what's been going on websites. And if you're not familiar with one website in particular, I would mention www.commondreams.org. If you haven't seen that, take a look at it, because it combines an amazing number of resources, and there are a lot of responses there. So personally and therapeutically, I've taken a lot of comfort in this, but I see the possibilities for a wider peace movement there outside the mainstream media. And I would not have said that 9 days ago. I wouldn't have had as much confidence in that as I do. But I see people not only comforting one another, but talking about strategies to use at the level of their families and with loved ones in terms of discussion. I see all kinds of things going on. And I don't even participate in chat rooms, which I'm sure many of you do. And so I'm sure there's a lot going on there. I'm just talking about websites and email. And so that's one space where I think a lot can happen. Yeah. I don't know who was first. Erica?
Yeah. Well, I guess I was just wondering about the possibilities of how do we reach people that have some public stature and some recognizable names that can make media and make media focus on them, such as I don't know, maybe signing on to a statement of principles, or something like that, or maybe having people that receive training, making phone calls to legislators or heads of organizations or such like that, and then how do we present that to the media or to the Bush administration? I guess where do we start with the grassroots of something like that?
That's a good question, because, for example, I've gotten emails, both firsthand and secondhand, from a lot of people in New York City who are talking about spontaneous organizing in Union Square and other parts of the city. I do not see that being covered in the mainstream media.
Right.
Maybe it has. I mean,
New York Times.
okay, that's good to hear. Which day?
I think it was yesterday I saw something.
Okay, that's encouraging, because for a while it simply wasn't appearing. So you're right. I mean, a lot of these things are going on, and so then the question is how to get them more recognition, because until a lot of the mainstream media recognize there is something such as a live peace movement, then in a certain sense it's
Well, I think
not
one
there.
of the hardest things to do is that politicians are a lot of the people that have media pull, and a lot of politicians it's hard to encourage them to give a non-wishy-washy opinion.
Yes.
And I think that this is crucial, that people need to stand their ground on an opinion and forget about the vote for a minute,
Yeah, I agree. I think the pressures are tremendous there for unity across the board. And in that sense, it feels very much like the Gulf War in terms of the resolution that was passed.
I think one thing that we have seen is you were mentioning that the major networks so powerfully influencing public awareness and public thought just by what they broadcast. Some of the most informative stuff has come in kind of like in the gaps. The woman, I can't remember her name, she's spokeswoman from Palestine, was one of the first reasonable voices that I heard in the earlier days. Since then, since regular programming has continued, there was last night, the Discovery Channels had a 2-hour, no commercials, stretch on, they went back to just snippets of, well, it started a long time ago with the Christian Crusades on the Muslims. I mean, they took it that far back. I was doing other things, so I didn't see the whole show, but it looked like it possibly had a whole lot more balance than a lot of other things going on.
And at least offering some data.
And offering that. So,
Yeah.
and I'm going to try and find if there's a way to contact them and urge them to rebroadcast that several times, because it seemed like it was just a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
Because there are these different things, Bill Maher, Politically Incorrect, has had some good guests on. There's a way that we can encourage the media to continue in this vein, just to keep the discourse out there. This is what mainstream America is looking at, and if they are uninformed, then they are more likely to have maybe the more traditional, hawkish-leaning views, and that may be the only thing they can think of because that's the only thing they know. If they know better, hopefully they can do better, think better, propose then to their congressmen and senators. If the congressmen and senators get a sense that the pulse of America is changing, not just revenge and retaliation, then they may start to exert different pressures. That's my thoughts.
We are the pulse of America, right? And so every time we gather, every time we're on MCAT, every time we're out with a listening post, I mean, this is part of communicating, at least in this area, in Missoula County and into Montana, that there are people who, let's not say we think differently, but we're thinking about the issues because we recognize there's a lot of complexity, and that's worth exploring. But just thinking about the O.J. Simpson trial, right? And what an interest America, mainstream America, us, took in law through that event, through that spectacle, really. And so this could be an opportunity in the same way that there is suddenly going to be a lot of interest in what happens internationally as people start thinking about, gee, maybe, they had their reasons, and I don't agree with their expression, certainly, and I don't condone their actions, but I'd like to learn about their reasons. What is America doing outside its own borders? And this should be something fun that we can organize around, which is community self-education and setting examples and spreading the word of learning about what's going on. And so when we talk about influencing others, we set the examples and we influence ourselves, and we show others how it's done. There were nationwide peace protests or peace gatherings around the country today, 8 in Boston alone. So there are things that are happening all around the country that we just might not be aware of. So we have to also trust that there are other things going on and work to try to connect. But don't ever think that we always have to project out to power, that we have a lot of power through gathering ourselves together.
And back on the internet, I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten from people who said, I felt like I was totally alone, and now I'm connecting with others and better able to articulate something and go back to my family or friends or other people, coworkers. I mean, it's just amazing. So a lot of people feel very isolated in situations like this, if they feel like they're in not only a minority opinion, but for some people they feel like they're the sole person with that kind of opinion. So there are lots of possibilities for support, I think, at both local levels in terms of gatherings like this, and then also in terms of any kind of correspondence that we have available to us.
And providing positive feedback to Discovery Channel or whatever it
Yes.
is. PBS showed a beautiful documentary on Afghanistan the other night. It was the most healing thing I'd seen all week long.
I'd like to
Beautiful,
ask a question
in-depth.
about that. Is it possible that we could get that film and show it somewhere here in
Well,
Missoula? I'd
that
like
may
to
be
show it in my
possible.
classes or else
Yeah,
in
that'd
a
be
public
great.
forum, because I think we're going to need to know more about Afghanistan very soon.
Yeah, it was very beautifully done, artfully done, and also packed with information. And I think that's a great idea, and I think PBS needs to hear from us that, gee, I hear I missed something important, can you run it again? So that they're not just hearing from people who didn't like what they saw. So, yeah,
Which channel aired it? Was it Montana PBS?
Montana PBS. Montana PBS.
Do you know what the name of it was?
No,
Is that Afghanistan?
I don't remember the name of it, I'm sorry.
Would we just go to their website?
Yeah, I bet if you go to let's see, what is the Montana website? I'm not sure what the Montana website is.
Call them up.
KUFM.
.org?
It's something,
Somebody know for sure?
Well, maybe it's
APBS.
It's KUFM is the local affiliate, just like it is for the National Public Radio.
So just call campus, ask for KUFM, call the radio station and get the website.
Thanks.
That would be my.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about the internet, did you give that the location of that website again? I didn't quite get
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Please.
Write a couple of these up here. We could easily make a list, actually. Well,
We have a
we,
list.
yeah.
We have a list. One of the things we'll be doing next week, up at the Peace Center, so rebuilding our website to have lots of information, sort of people have been dropping off and emailing around these incredible op-ed pieces. And so, which I think is one source for just practicing the dialoguing, reading those pieces and seeing how they engage others in these ideas and use those as models. But we're going to collect that information and links to other sites and other sources of information. So, and also support email distribution. So, and real mail distribution. So again, what we're trying to do is gathering people here, let's self-organize, find what you're interested in doing, and then we'll help you meet here, we'll help you communicate with each other, and express your ideas and develop your ideas. So these are all things that we'll have in our resources.
I'm forgetting now some of these.
www.indiemedia.org.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one I was forgetting. Thank you. I can't remember. The Times of India has some excellent coverage, and I think it's. I can't remember. The tail end. These, I believe, are all accurate. This it's associated with Z Magazine. These three are like clearinghouses, really, that have connections to many other resources, magazines, newspapers, and so forth. Common Dreams posts both editorials and letters from lots of citizens, and then they have connections to other things. So I found that to be the single most useful site.
Which one was that?
commondreams.org.
I wasn't here earlier, and I assume someone made mention of the March for Peace.
No, it hasn't been announced.
Okay, well, then this is a good time to bring it up. Along the lines of setting the example, this is the first visible public demonstration. I don't know who these people are, I don't know who's doing it. I hope they have a permit. This sounds really fogish, but the thing is, if you don't proceed by the rules, you're going to set the tone in this town as hotheads, and your message won't be heard. Our message won't be heard. The idea is to express dissent, educate, and convince people, and let them have a forum to say what they need to say. So whoever's doing this, okay, but I mean, well, let me finish and then it needs a permit, you need to go to the police, you need to go to the sheriff, you need to talk to these people about protecting your right to say what you want to say. You need to be aware of how you deal with the American flag in these things. You need to be aware of what you say when you're going down the street, at least at the beginning. The protections you enjoy, we enjoy from meeting here and doing this tonight, are because of that flag, you know. That's a great symbol. Don't throw it away right away, you know. Too many people did that during the Vietnam protests. It was stupid, stupid, stupid. So, I mean, I'm a conscientious objector. I came down here just to see what sort of folks were going to be involved in this sort of action. It's a needed action. But let's not mess it up from the get-go. These ad hoc actions are good, and there's not necessarily a need for a central committee or central organizing or anything. But if you're going to do these things, please remember that, like the man said, we do set the example. We're known by how we conduct ourselves when we try to change people's minds.
Let's hear from the organizers. What's it, how, what?
Yeah, that's good.
I'm Julia. I'm with Seeds of Peace. We started planning this march. Hello, somebody's on some of the chairs. It's sort of it wasn't really a march. It's sort of like a gathering for peace at the farmers market as ended at noon, followed by a march to Karas Park where we invite citizens and organizations to speak, sort of an open mic forum. And we have invited some specific organizations like some churches and social justice groups such as Wheel and the Peace Center, of course, and any group that feels that they're interested in speaking. And free food will be provided by Food Not Bombs, and The purpose that I saw and that we saw in this was that we felt an immediate need to take action because of how soon, you know, this impending war is, and the need to make a statement to the community, and then as peace activists sort of empower ourselves with the unity that we have. And even if it was only 40 or 50 people, that would mean something. And it wasn't a time to be angry and to be, you know, burning flags or screaming angry chants. It was just a time to talk about like peace with justice was kind of the theme that we had. Just a need for peace on the East Coast with the victims, the families there, and then for peace like around the world, I guess. And it's really you know, Seed the Peace is, you know, just taking a role and wanting to organize this. But there's no mean this event that we're trying to claim for ourselves and go out and be rabble rousers. It's open to anyone and their input and their involvement. So, Janet.
My question is with regards to his concern and just my own curiosity. I was wondering if you folks had contacted both the authorities and, even more important, the media, and if you need any help or if others of us in this group could assist you in that.
I just would like to remind folks that last summer during the Hells Angels debacle, the march that began as a very, very peaceful march unfortunately ended up very badly. The police reacted with extreme
Energy.
and you know, there were unusual circumstances at the time, but there are unusual circumstances now as well. And so even if what you plan to do is march on the sidewalk and stop at all the stoplights and all of that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have contacted them and let them know. If for some reason they deny the request, then I would very, very, very strongly caution you to keep it to the sidewalk and obey all the traffic lights. That's the only thing. Others?
I hope I haven't missed anything by being a few minutes late. I'm Carol Bell, and I'm with the Greens and the Friends meeting in Missoula. And maybe you've already discussed this, but it would be my strong preference and recommendation that a coalition, something a little more formal, be formed, because it appears to me that this will be both a long-term campaign, as President Bush is saying as we sit here, that it will be a long-term campaign, and it will also simultaneously require or call for fast response to things. And I believe that formalizing a bit more would be more helpful, because then we could both gather more resources, coordinate on all of these details better, use our own organizations to distribute the news so that we get the word out more quickly. And so if what I see a list on there that I might have missed, but if Thursdays are going to be a regular meeting space, maybe that could be the regular formation or development meetings of this coalition. But I would like to see something structurally come together to respond more thoughtfully.
Excellent idea.
So when you say structure, Carol?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of things like a phone tree and distribution lists and so forth to get information out quickly? Or?
See a coalition that both encompasses individuals, but also that that's primarily or largely organizations as well, so that they can then disseminate whatever we all decide to their members, and it won't be so dependent on everybody coming here every week.
So in that sense, it might be helpful to have a representative of each of those area organizations who agrees to disseminate
Right, but it would also be open to individuals as well.
Oh, yeah,
right.
sure. But to make sure at least the information is out, like you said, because there may be some very urgent
possibly gather some resources to perhaps, we've talked, both the Greens and the Friends have talked about advertising or a billboard, or just somehow promoting a peace message so that people know where to contact like-minded people, and we could pool resources in this way.
I just heard that someone had purchased a billboard, and that's happened already. We know who?
Anybody here know about it?
That was Elizabeth said that. Do you know anything, or Jess? Remember?
Is there any more conversation about influencing public opinion right now? This is what George was especially up here to help us talk about. Perry.
I just wanted to share a kind of a disturbing experience I had, because George did bring up the internet as being a good conduit. And I had kind of the opposite experience, which was rather disquieting. I didn't find, at least the national news that I was watching, to be all of that hawkish. In fact, there was actually seemed to be a lot of thoughtfulness about the role that the United States might have played. Tom Brokaw kept talking about a stunning failure of U.S. intelligence, and a lot of things that I discovered subsequently on the internet weren't very well received, and I kind of received a bit of a shock. I had been a bulletin board for people who play the piano, and I was astonished to discover all of a sudden how very conservative pianists are. Because, of course, as I'm sure happened on many of these kinds of forums, as soon as the disaster happened, all talk of the usual topics ceased, and areas were made possible for people to have public discussions about this and what had happened and share their feelings. And I piped up rather innocently, talking about some of the things I had heard on the news, in terms of us looking at our own, perhaps asking questions about why this would happen and what our country needed to look at in terms of its foreign policy. And I felt like I was at the bottom of the heap on the football field where they all start piling up on you. And so it seemed that those people were not hearing the same thing from the media that I was hearing. I didn't recognize a lot of what they were saying in the media. And they were watching the same programming I was. And I think that if the internet certainly has tremendous potential, but I wonder, likewise, like talking all just to ourselves, if out there on the net there might be a lot of places that we could be talking to people who think differently than we do. What I chose to do was to continue in a very civil and compassionate way to speak what I saw as some truths about the situation and keep taking the flak, but not turn it into anything personal. I felt it was important to keep putting that point of view out there. Maybe people weren't ready to hear it right then, but they might be able to in a week or in 2 weeks. And if that stuff goes on there as sort of as part of the record in that forum where people of a different sort of mindset are looking, it might be valuable. Keep articulating that in the kind of forum that doesn't automatically think the way we do.
Seems to be particularly useful to also be sending those people without actively engaging in the dialogue, if that becomes difficult, a piece that has particularly informed you,
Yeah, absolutely, without comment.
Yeah, without comment.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been
I just
trying to.
have a question real quick about the email list that was going around. Is somebody going to be sending like a kind of a minutes of this
Yes.
meeting, and so if we have to leave early, we'll still
Yes.
get what's coming later?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is that list now? Has it made it all the way around?
Does anyone need this?
Has anyone not signed in yet? Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the Saturday march. What is Seeds of Peace? I don't know what that organization is.
Well, I guess I can answer that because I'm part of it. Seeds of Peace is basically a collective that does nonviolence trainings and logistical support for what some folks probably consider little more radical, nonviolent, direct action and educational things around the environment. We've done stuff with human rights, anti-nuclear things, and we moved to Montana last November. We worked with the Buffalo Field Campaign, and we also have worked in the past with the Cove Mallard Coalition, and we did, at least I was around way back then, a lot of stuff in the Bay Area around the Gulf War. So we're basically a resource organizing collective that can also cook for 5,000 people. And we were also involved in the major anti-globalization demonstrations here in this country, Seattle, Washington, D.C. last year, and Los Angeles and Philadelphia. So we have a lot of experience, and I think need to approach this issue carefully and sensitively, and we're just a group that wants to work with other groups and members of the community to have a voice of reason out there, and that's really the reason for this march. It's not supposed to be any sort of confrontational
No,
thing.
I wasn't assuming that, I just hadn't heard of your organization.
Okay, we've been around a long time, but we've only been in Missoula a little less than a year.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something about the march too? I wish Julia was still in here, but just, I feel like, you know, it's really good that we are, some people are raising these questions about doing everything with permits and everything, but also, I just wanted to give you guys support for organizing this and getting it together, and sometimes when individuals have a good idea and go with it, some of the, we don't always all know all the little, you know, nooks and crannies we're supposed to fill out, and so I just, like, good job for doing it, and I personally just think it's a great thing, so.
Thank you. Okay, Al, did you have something you needed to say?
Oh, I've been thinking that on the topic of self-education, for one, that Dean was talking about, and also how perhaps to help us formulate where we go from here, it might help to give more thought and study to the root causes of the horrific and despicable events of last Tuesday. And this connection, one article that I've come across on the net, even though I don't necessarily 100% agree with it, in particular, I think as the author's tone at times is a little too strident.
Before a lot of people leave, excuse me, I wanted to let you know that there has been an piece of art created kind of to express the idea that this is, you know, something that the whole world is involved with, and to sort of bring forward the idea that peace also is patriotic, okay? If there's anybody that's moved to display this image anywhere, for one thing, it can be downloaded. We can make that available so you could even, you know, send it to other people. But these copies have been made for your use. We would appreciate just covering the cost of the color copy, which is $1 a piece, if you can swing that. But they're really great images to have around. So please don't leave. If you want one of these, please come up and get it.
Will those be available for $1 in the Peace Center also?
They will be, and you can also download them if you have a computer. We can send it to you, email it to you.
Would that be automatically from the list, or do we need to ask for it?
With the list, we'll send it to you. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, Al. And so you had an article that
No problem. If anyone's interested, it's written by the editor of Die Kun magazine, which focuses, among other things, largely on peace and social justice issues from a progressive perspective. And last, whatever day of the week it was, the 16th of this month, the editor Michael Lerner posted on its website, www.tikkun.com, an article entitled "Where the Violence Comes From, Newer Version of a World Out of Touch." Thank you.
What was the title again, please?
Where the Violence Comes From, Newer Version of a World Out of Touch.
Okay,
Can I just mention there that we talked about the internet and television?
Yes.
And needing information and needing to understand situations.
Yes.
Can I recommend a book?
Yes.
It's by Karen Armstrong, and it's called Holy War, and it's the most profound, well-researched, she's a great scholar, about the Middle East and the roots of that situation.
And we have it here in the Peace Library, right?
But it is, it's so comprehensive.
Okay.
It goes back way before the Crusades.
Her name again is what?
Karen Armstrong.
Oh, Karen Armstrong, yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
So related to all these articles, one thing you might, when we should put up on the board, is if people want to start reading groups around these different books.
Hey, dude, speak up, man. Can't hear you.
All right, so another thing we could consider doing is establishing reading groups. We have to establish them. I mean, if you find a book that's interesting, we'll have the distribution list, you'll listen to that announcement, and tell people when and where, and you'll see who shows up. And I just think it's really, we talk about the internet, but I think it's really great to see people's faces and to face each other instead of look at each other through this glass, which is a tremendously useful tool, but has its limits.
I have to go, so I just want to say that I work with teenagers a lot, especially a lot of the kids at Hellgate, and I talk to them about issues around environmentalism and anti-globalization and things like that. And several of these of the Hellgate students have approached me and asked if I would get some people together so that they could have meetings and talk about some of the things that they're experiencing at some of the high schools, specifically Hellgate, but also, I mean, the other high schools apparently are even worse. I know a girl who, she says half the boys in her senior class have just joined up. And they're getting, a lot of these kids feel like they aren't allowed to speak up in school. A girl that lives with me was literally thrown out of her government class because she was opposing her teacher who was going on and on about bombing, and she came home in tears. So they want to start getting together, and I said, you guys need to do this. You need to make your own flyers and you need to make your own names, but that we would try to facilitate some kind of meetings. So they want to start meeting at the Raven, either Monday or Wednesday nights, and I'm going to go down and talk to the people. So that's just a group. If anyone knows, if you guys want to contact me, or if anyone knows any students, people between the ages of 15 and 19 that want to say what they have to say and learn how the appropriate ways to speak up about their feelings about what's going on. A lot of these kids are terrified. My 18-year-old son is like, what do I have to, should I go to Canada now, Mom? And they're scared. They're very scared, and they're coming to, this is a good time to reach out. So if you guys want my email address, you can write it down.
May I?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been to several meetings with the with the Quakers and the Greens, but the Quakers have met, and although it's not official through the Quaker process yet, I think there's a lot of interest in the Quakers of taking a lead within this community for counseling on conscientious objection, which is something many people in the organization have experience with. And some other folks from the Greens, I've directed them towards the Quakers if they're interested in CO. And I think that there's certainly people with the Quakers who would really like to reach out to that group that you have going at the high school. And if other people, just in general, I think that's something the Quakers want to contribute to.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we hold off just 1 second, Joe? Scott, can you talk about
I'll try and be really brief. My name is Scott Nicholson. I'm a member of Community Action for Justice in the Americas and also work as an organizer with the Montana Human Rights Network. And I've witnessed firsthand U.S. military intervention in El Salvador, Guatemala, and this past summer Colombia. So certainly very concerned about what's going on and was kind of depressed about the way things were going. Wasn't really seeing a whole lot of action happening nationally until earlier this week. And somebody sent me an email with a message that came out from Global Exchange, a human rights group in the Bay Area, and they were calling on people to contact their congressional representatives and just to let them know that we oppose U.S. military intervention, we're concerned about what's happening to people of color here at home, and we're concerned about what's happening with our civil liberties. And for me, I think the one that I'm most concerned about is, again, is U.S. military intervention and the thousands or tens of thousands of people that could be getting killed very shortly here. So what we're doing is just urging people to contact our congressional representatives, and actually, I mean, if everybody here was to, get on the phone tomorrow morning and make a call first thing to Baucus, Burns, and Rehberg, I think that's one concrete step that we can take right away. So I just put together a little handbill with just some basic information, contact stuff on the back. I had a chance to hand those out in the middle ahead of time. I thought maybe just route those around for folks on the side here and kind of work their way around. And also, if that piece is something that people think is useful, I'd be happy to print off some more and leave them here at the center. And then people could stop by, pick them up, hand them out to friends. We're planning on being at the Myrna Loy tomorrow evening, prior to Winona LaDuke's presentation, be able to hand those out there, and also at the Saturday market, the beginning of Saturday. So just wanted to share that with folks this evening.
I just want to share the experience that I and several others have had trying to use the email addresses for the congressional delegation. They're getting immediately sent back, not because the address is wrong, but the system's not accepting them for some reason at that end. So the phone is a good idea. Yeah.
Can I just piggyback on that? I really wanted to make this point tonight, and the kids will let me stay this long. I don't know they're going to let me stay much longer. I'm Peter Kirk. I teach political science at the university. I found a great email site or website that has a petition that is, I think, very well worded in terms of trying to approach the situation that we're facing with restraint, with understanding, and with respect for human lives. It's a petition to President Bush and all of our other political leaders. It starts out, we the people of the United States, people and residents of the United States and of other countries. So it's open for signature by people from all over. And it works really simply. You just have to read it. If you agree with it, you just click. And you're automatically a signator then. And then they have another page you can go to where you can email your representatives and send them a message. I had the same experience you did, Anita. Max, the one that Max went through, the one that Conrad Burns came back. I wondered about that. In any event, this is the address, and I really encourage you to check it out anyway. It's home.University of Chicago. It's all working out of, no, just U Chicago, sorry, uchicago.edu. And then there's a tilde, you know what that little sign? And then it's D.H. Picker, P-I-C-K-E-R, D.H. Picker, one word. And then petition, these are slashes, educate.edu / right, and then D.H. Picker, there's a slash before that, after edu. Yes, that stays, and then / petition.
Is there a www on there?
Seems you
No,
don't
it's an
need them
HTTP.
anymore.
No, yeah. So that's, I really urge you to check it out. As of last night, there were 160,000 people who had signed the petition. So that's, it's been up, I think, since Thursday, but it's, it takes a while for it to snowball in terms of people seeing it.
Well, that's a huge snowball, because the last time I checked in with it, it had 39,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Great.
so that's really something. That's great.
And maybe that's something we can transfer to paper signatures like at the farmer's market or...
Yeah, it's a good idea because some people don't have email access.
Well, yeah, but also, Scott, that might be something to include on what's getting handed out to folks as well. Yeah, Joe.
I just want to put out, I'm a representative from the Student New Party on campus, and right now we're in the discussion stages of talking to other groups on campus. We want to move fairly quickly to have a global peace rally in the Oval, hopefully next week, but at the very latest the week after. I don't have a lot of experience in organizing this sort of thing. And I'd ask anyone who knows about this or who has done this sort of thing in the past, please talk to me. We need help. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
My email address is wormwwod@msn.com. And we are going to have meetings in the UC. Well, next Thursday, we're going to have a meeting in the UC, room 331 at 6 p.m. But email's best. And I'll be here afterwards. We're just kind of wormwwod@msn.com.
Yes.
Could you read the list of things that are in process, or have you already gone over that? I can't see it from here.
Okay, there was something going on with an outreach to Arab students on campus, and but the person who is directing that isn't here today, so we don't have an update on that. We'll try to get that and include it in what we'll send out to you after this meeting. There are forums that you'll also hear about. We'll send you all of this information. What we haven't gotten to is that there's someone who is interested in organizing what's called a Tonglen meditation on a regular basis here at the center. The suggestion was for meeting this coming Monday evening. Do you know if the center's open? Okay. We'll have to check that out, and we'll find out. But if there's interest in that, this is a particular meditation, a Buddhist meditation in which you receive some of the darkness and transmute it and then put it back out. It's apparently something very powerful. I don't know if anybody here has had experience with it and can speak to it more experientially than I can. But the person who wants to do that is Marianne Spitzform, who's an eco-psychologist here in town. And yeah, we've covered all the rest of that.
Just go ahead. Well, I don't know if Carol is still here or if she left, but I just really
stand up.
I just wanted to suggest that we do what Carol suggested earlier. I'm a member of the Greens also, and I just feel like there's so many great things being said here from different groups about what they want to be doing, and everybody's writing down all these different email addresses. And if we could, like, by the end of the night, try to have a formal coalition, like Peace Coalition, and just have a list of organizations, and at least, I mean, just as a network to start, not saying that as a group we're doing anything particular until we decide to, but.
Well, all of the information from tonight will come to you. Do you have email? Okay, we'll come to you, and then I think what Carol suggested was using next Thursday as an opportunity to actually do that kind of coalition building. Does that sound okay? I think people are kind of starting to drift away now, so it might be a little bit too late to start that process. Yeah.
There goes the peacemaker again. I'm Elizabeth Bishop, and I lived through the 70s, and I was one that did not participate. I observed a lot. And right now, at 51 years of age, I'm going, I ain't doing it again. I'm not standing outside. So, one of the things I do know from my own experience is that when you come from peace, and you express the peace energy, for anybody that understands that, if you don't, I'll be glad to explain. Don't buy into the stuff and become a mental, emotional victim is one of my biggies. It's about really staying in a space of peace and being that energy. Okay. I found, because I am in a marriage where I have a very opposite husband. He was brought up military, but he's kind of like the hawk with the dove hanging out with him, but you know, kind of sort of can't make up his mind where he wants to go because he doesn't know how. So for me, what I find is that really staying centered in the piece. And I try. I'm one of those that I have watched more TV probably in the last 2 days than I did the rest of this time. Because my initial thing was, okay, yes, I want to know what happened, then back off and don't give it the energy. Do what you can do about it. I'm not saying, oh, you know, blow it off and ignore it, but really do what you can in your own little or big way, whatever your thing is. But don't buy in and don't give energy to the people that are doing their choice, okay? But I don't choose as my choice of the hatred or for those people, whatever the heck was happening with all this craziness. Stay centered in who you are and in peace. Because, excuse me, the energy is like light. If you go in darkness and you set the tiniest little flicker of light, the darkness is no longer totally dark. And when you got this many people just in this building, in this room, and multiplied by what all is going on into people that are for peace, it makes an effect. The pebble thrown into the water the water doesn't stay still. It does ripple. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can
I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Super fast. I know I've put in one of my 2 cents worth tonight, but I just wanted to say that last night Terry Tempest Williams spoke. She's an awesome ecological writer, and she brought up the fact that the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which was a big issue before this, is now being kind of used by the conservative faction, saying, well, obviously now we need to drill. And it's there was some talk, somebody was there last night, I don't know if she's here now, but was talking about how there's even a rider going on to one of these defense bills, which may even come up on Friday. Tomorrow, yes, saying that we need to drill as a matter of national security, which probably everybody in this room knows is complete bunk. I mean, the amount of oil we could get out of there would sustain us for a matter of months, and it would not make us any less dependent on foreigners. So anyway, if you're gonna, talk to your representatives, it's just another good thing to stick in there, and don't let them drill in the refuge.
House or Senate?
It's the Senate coming up.
Senate.
George.
I want to add one other word of encouragement, and this really, it comes to me from a student I've never met who sent me an email, and as she was writing to me, she said, I don't really have anything to say about these issues, but she was responding to editorials that she had read and so forth. And as she was saying, I have nothing to say, in fact, she was saying something very powerful, and she drew the analogy she was talking about people that were surrounding her that she found to be kind of blindly patriotic, who were objecting to any criticism of the United States right now. And she said that struck her as so strange, because she said it seemed like an infatuation rather than a mature love. So that was the analogy she drew, and I wrote her back and I said, you have a lot to say. And so I guess I would urge all of you, take opportunities to write letters to the editor, to write editorials, to contact congressional representatives, like has already been mentioned, to call into radio talk shows, television shows when there's that opportunity and so forth, because a lot more people have things to say than they realize. And I think a lot of times people feel disempowered that way. They feel they're not that articulate, they're not that knowledgeable. And as I wrote back to the student, I said, you have a beautiful message right there, not just for the people right around you, but for anybody else that you can find the opportunity to speak to.
And don't forget the power of image as well as word. I mean, I think it's very important, obviously not just this image, but any images that we find that really speak to the heart directly. Get them out there. Get them out there. Share them with people.
Yes, for the meeting. Pardon? I know many people are anxious to get out of here, but I, for one, am sort of feeling like I would like to talk more about action plans and things that can be done. So maybe after the people who want to leave, the people who would like to brainstorm some actions for within the next week or two, and just kind of get started on that, because I know the Greens are kind of looking for something to dig our teeth into, and we're hoping to get some ideas out of this meeting. So I'd like to stay around if anyone wants to say that.
Is there anything else that needs to come up before we adjourn? Well, Julia?
Oh, I just have my final plug for our gathering. We're just meeting at noon at the X's for all interested organizations and folks. There'll be a table there from 10:30 to 12.
Next Saturday, Julia?
Yes, yes.
Susan?
I just want to say that the Friends, the Quakers, are having a meeting for worship every morning from 7:30 to 8. It's at 410 East Pine Street, a private home, mine. Everyone's welcome. Or if you just want to tune in, you know, where you are, over your coffee, whatever, spend half an hour and meditate on peace.
Where is it again, Susan?
410 East Pine Street.
And what was the time?
7:30 till 8 each morning, Monday through Friday.
Just want to make a last quick announcement. I think most people probably already know about this, but just that Winona LaDuke is speaking tomorrow night at the Wilma, and I just think it's great timing because I think I've been told that she has a lot to say about this, and I think we could all use a little bit of leadership from people that we actually respect. So it's at 7:30 at the Wilma, and it's a suggested donation of $10, but no one will be turned away. So come.
Thank you very much.
This keeps coming to me. They're having, I forgot what's the deal, up on the hill where the peace sign used to be. They're having a gathering. I physically cannot make it up the hill. So it keeps reminding me that there's probably a lot of people in my shape that can't make it up that hill if they would like to do something. If anybody knows of any place, and I have no clue what this will look like, it just keeps coming to me, that we need to do something. And I was telling somebody, I says, I keep seeing ribbons. I have no clue why. Not red, white, and blue, but in the maypole for some reason. It keeps coming to mind. Something, but actually as a peace symbol. And so if there's anybody here from Wild Ground, that keeps coming to me too, that maybe Wild Ground's a good place to do that.
Well, and also Joe's talking about a gathering on the Oval, so let's try to consolidate some of this energy instead of having a lot of little things going on. What if we're really talking about having something rather large happen, you know? And that would take some planning, but I think it's much more effective to see a very, very large group of Missoulians involved in this. Just before the Persian Gulf War, actually just after the announcement was made that the bombing was going to start, Joel, do you remember? It was like 3,000 Missoulians turned out. 3,000 Missoulians. And this was at a time when, as soon as the announcement was made that we were starting to drop the bombs, the atmosphere of the town immediately changed. There had been a lot of tolerance for kind of the peaceniks who were standing out in front of the federal building day after day after day. But as soon as the announcement was made, a lot of energy came in to be kind of pointing fingers at those peaceniks and making them wrong. So it was really an act of I think, rather remarkable courage that many Missoulians were willing to turn out at that time. What was wonderful about it was that it was celebratory of peace. Beautiful kites and tall, stick puppets, beautifully colored and so forth. So it was something that was really celebrating something positive, what we can be together as human beings. So I
That's
think,
my idea.
yeah. But that's, here's somebody over here who's talking about let's have something big on the campus. So let's try to.
That stays, not just that comes for a day and it's gone, but something that actually stays and reminds people.
Thank you. Is there anything else that needs to be said before we close for tonight? Yeah.
People have hope that we can prevent this from turning into a mass murder like the Gulf War. So there's 2 million dead Iraqis 10 years later. I would really like to see this work.
Yeah.
So I'll just add a little, I'm sorry, I'll just add a little statement about hope. I have a couple of friends who have been meditators with Transcendental Meditation for quite a number of years, and they're leaving tomorrow morning. There's people gathering in Iowa, which is the center in the United States. They're aiming for at least 1,500 people in the United States. They're aiming for up to 40,000 in India for meditation retreat, in a hope that that energy will also start spreading. And what I'm struck with is, it seems, in contrast to what I experienced during the Vietnam War, it seems like there's energy in so many different arenas, energy, spiritual energy, political energy, to say, no, we don't really want this. We don't really want more war. So that's the link that I am tagging onto as some hope.
Yeah, and I think the mobilization of this energy is happening much more quickly than it has in the past, so. Yeah.
Slow but sure. I don't think I'm going to be able to say, but I'd just like to suggest for those in the conversations that you do, that one thing that we may want to start brainstorming is to come up with ideas for alternatives. Those who have very strong feelings, those who have maybe been directly affected, you know, one of their loved ones was in one of the towers or in the Pentagon. There's a sense of wanting some kind of justice for a very terrible act. And the sense that some may have about people who are proposing peace is that then they're, you know, sympathizers, you know, and so forth. If there can be a communication of, these are alternatives, this is a way that maybe justice could happen without innocent people having to die. So if we can find ways to get that kind of message out there, I think then it gives people a different perspective of what we're about, and also starts them thinking about, yeah, we don't need to kill other innocent people. This is something we could do, and they might write their comments.
Yes, thank you.
It's all about empathy. As much as we're asking others to be empathetic to perhaps what the U.S. does to others abroad, we have to be empathetic with the people who do feel these ranges of anger, desire for revenge, or just feelings of tremendous loss. And
Which we all feel.
Which we all feel. I mean, all of these feelings are legitimate. And what we're grappling with is, how do we express them? What do we do with those kinds of feelings?